Today is Monday, June 21st. Let's set our intention, make aspiration by saying the four immeasurable prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Um, so I want to share with you. I got a really email from Garchen Buddhist Institute. They sent a video that was really quite amazing. So Garchen Buddhist Institute is the main center for Garchen Rinpoche, although he has several centers around the world, but the main one is in Chino Valley, Arizona, which is northwest Arizona. It's kind of a high deserty region. It's up in the mountains. And there was a wildfire 3 days ago. And the fire was getting very close to the Institute, and they were worried. So they started packing up some of the holy objects. There's some relics and very holy objects that they've had in the lineage for hundreds of years, maybe more. They were preparing to evacuate. There were planes coming in trying to spray retardant, but it was very windy, so it wasn't working. And they were getting ready to evacuate, and Rinpoche had one of the lamas call the Gar Monastery in Tibet, which is the true seat of Garchen Rinpoche, which is where he was before the Chinese invaded in 1959, and he wound up going into prison. At the monastery in Tibet, there's these giant prayer wheels. They're big, and there's several of them in a row, and they're really old. I mean, they're hundreds and hundreds of years old, and they're very precious and holy. And they spin constantly. After the Chinese invaded in 1959, they were hidden in a cave until like the 80s because Chinese occupation was destroying a lot of the monasteries and temples and all that kind of stuff. And then in the 80s, things loosened up a bit, and they were able to rebuild the monastery through the help of Garchen Rinpoche and put the prayer wheels back. So Rinpoche has the Lama call and say, make offerings to the prayer wheels and blow the conch. The conch is the shell. They blow, it makes like a musical sound. I guess maybe it's I don't know the details about what the conch is, but they made offerings to the prayer wheels. And a few hours later, it started to rain, and it hadn't rained there in about 3 months. It rains very rarely. Obviously, it's like high desert area. And this particular stretch was about 3 months. And shortly after they made these offerings, it rained and put out the fires. Pretty wild. I was just sent a video of the whole thing. So, do what you will with that information. But that actually happened just a couple of days ago. So let's start with the 9 purifying breaths. Nick, if you will put up the chart of the channels. So everyone has a blue central channel. Traditionally, and men have the white one on the right, and the women have the red one on the right. But that's not as essential as you deciding where you want it to be. The blue is in the center, depending on how you identify. You can put that, the red or the white. I kind of just do it more traditionally. The white is on the right. They correspond to different poisons, right? Like the white as anger, the red is attachment, which can mean lust or greed, avarice, and those things. And the central is ignorance. The flip side of the poisons, remember, are wisdom. So the flip side of um, anger is patience. The flip side of attachment, is love, and the flip side of the poison of ignorance is wisdom, right? So, uh, and realization of emptiness, really, more than wisdom. A realization of emptiness and realization of the true nature of things, nature of mind, and all those things. There's probably better interpretations of that than what I just gave you, but that's just how I know it, at least today. We're going to start with the right hand. We do this Vajra fist. So thumb goes to the ring finger and we close both hands. You may want a napkin or paper towel for the, obvious reasons. The expulsion of whatever. Right hand goes to the opposite side. We're going to breathe in first. When we breathe into this right channel, be it red or white, imagine breathing in pure, clean, enlightened air. And focus on that right channel, be it red or white. Now we're going to let out all the obscurations and negativities through that same channel, through the other nostril. Same thing. Now we're going to switch to the other side. So now I'm dealing with the red channel, and I'm going to breathe in that pure air to the red channel. Hold at the navel for a beat or two, and then expel. Forgot to tell you to hold, that's important. Last one on the left. Now we're going to go into the central channel. We don't close anything. So we breathe in and out through both nostrils. On the third breath, the exhalation, we're going to imagine that breath, our consciousness carried on that breath, coming out the crown, merging with space. And after that, go right into meditation, the timed meditation. We'll do, let's do 11 minutes. $15 minutes, how's that? Okay. Central channel. Hold at the navel. Breathe in the clear, enlightened, charged air. Hold. Breathe out the obscurations of ignorance. Last one. And this last one, you're holding and then forcefully kind of push it out through the crown chakra. we use techniques in the meditation to work with our thought. One is focusing on the breath, so we put our attention on the breath, the place where the air moves in and out, where's where the bottom of the nostrils and the upper lip meet there. Focus your attention on that. When you realize you're thinking, because you will think, the trick is to become aware of the fact that you're thinking. The other technique is visualizing clear, unstained, limitless sky, and a thought, imagine it as a cloud that has arisen from the sky that dissolves back into it. The third technique, it might be for people who have been doing this a little longer, it's a little more tricky, is just using awareness. Mind looking at mind. The moment of awareness that you're thinking, let go in its own place. Let that thought dissolve in its own place. The mind looking at mind, the awareness becoming aware of itself, the mind becoming aware of itself, aware that it's thinking, and able to just let go and settle back into the peace, the peaceful clarity, the natural clarity, the natural peace, which is the nature of your mind, really, when it's not obscured by attachment or aversion, thoughts of attachment or aversion. key to this practice is becoming aware of your thoughts. Not labeling, not judging them, not pushing them away, not following them, becoming aware of them, and then letting them go or leaving them be, basically. Letting them just collapse on themselves and disintegrate. And those thoughts are all created by karmic imprints, by our karma. They're kind of being filtered, through karma, the karma being filtered through the mind and resulting in these thoughts based on past karma, karmic imprints, which get triggered by our response to things. Fear of the future, anxiety about the future, regret of the past, resentment of the past. So a lot of what we're doing is really about returning to the moment, resetting into the moment. And in this moment, we're just sitting, really. We're not making plans. We're not trying to fix what's already happened. We're just sitting in the moment. And the clarity of that moment is when it's completely unobscured. You get a sense and a taste of that unborn sphere of phenomenon, which is complete potentiality. But resting in that rather than trying to control it or figure it out or prevent it from unfolding naturally. Back to the breath. Put your attention on the breath, on the space beneath your nostrils. Or if you're using the cloud, just let it disintegrate. Back into which it came, let it settle back into the clarity of the sky from where it came. And merge your mind with that open clarity of the sky. Don't resist the thoughts. Just become aware of them. There's a difference. let whatever arises arise, and then just become aware of it. Don't prevent it from arising, because then you're engaged in controlling this, and which you don't anyway. Trying to control it, which is a wasted effort. So just let whatever arises arise, and just become aware of it. If we don't reject it, if we don't label it as bad, if we don't follow it and get lost in the story of it, it really just dissipates on its own. But we do have to become aware of it. Which is amazing if you think about it, because it's mind looking at mind. The thought is mind, and the awareness is mind. In that moment, when you become aware of the thought, it's almost your mind doing two things at once, right? Which I guess is impossible, because it's really only mind. I think it's either or. Either we're lost in, projection or regret, or we're aware. Or we're lost in either projection and fear and plans, or we're lost in the resentment and the regret, or the sometimes the attachment to the past as well, or we're aware and in the moment. Okay. When you meet someone who you feel is really present, it's a very palpable quality, And they're looking in your eyes, and you're looking in their eyes, then you feel that their attention is on you, that they're listening, they're attuned to you. Um, that's presence, It comes from a certain level of awareness. I mean, obviously, it's varying degrees and varying various people, but it's very palpable when it's when that presence um, is real. So the takeaway today, just know the baseline of your mind is peace, right? Is calm. That's what we're tasting when we meditate. Right? When we're unaware, going through our day, we're not really peaceful and calm. Something may make us peaceful, like you may walk into the park and see a beautiful view. You might see a water or a lake, or you might see a beautiful person, or beautiful gesture in the street, or beautiful interaction between people, and it makes you happy. Um, but here we're just applying and working with, applying techniques and working with our mind itself. And when we do apply it, when we work with the thought and that we settle into that mind, it's peace and it's calm. That's really the takeaway. It's important to know that. Now, why do we do this? Why do we meditate? Many of you have come for, maybe different reasons. Working with anxiety, working with depression, working with wanting to work on things like that. But I mean, to really progress in terms of what the Buddhist path is, if that's what you're interested in, it really has to go hand in hand with the study of the Dharma, and learn about the nature of things, learn about emptiness, learn about karma. Um, we're developing this way of working with our thoughts to have the awareness to be able to respond and react and interact with the world and with others in a way where we're not led and dominated by the poisons, which have developed through karma. Why are we doing that? Because that's of benefit to other beings. Because when we're not interacting, reacting, or acting from a place that deals with those negative emotions like anger, jealousy, attachment, grasping, greed, or ignorance, we can come from a place of love, really. I don't mean that in a new agey, hippy dippy way, like you're gonna walk around and say I love you to every person you see, but what is love? I mean, we know what love is to the ones we're attached to, our husbands and wives and lovers and kids and family and mothers and fathers and stuff. That's easy, right? Sometimes not. Sometimes we don't love those people, but often we do. But what does it mean to cultivate love in terms of, on a universal level, on a daily level, on a day-to-day level, when you're walking down the street, when you're interacting with the person making you coffee at Starbucks? How does love come into play? I was given the name Zopa as my middle name, my Tibetan Buddhist name, which means patience in Tibetan. So when Garchen Rinpoche gave me the name, he said, the key to your practice is patience, because when you lose your patience, you lose your love. I've said this before, but I'm saying it again because I say it to myself very often because I need to hear it. And when he told me that many years ago, I kind of, it sounded very, of course, yes, you lose your patience, you lose your love. But the more time goes by, and really trying to get a bit more serious about practice, really going to that. Well, the day I took refuge and became a Buddhist, he told me that. And I've learned over the years also, nothing Rinpoche or any of the great teachers say is kind of metaphorical. This is literal. It's not illustrative, it's literal. This is a teaching. When you lose your patience, you lose your love. What is patience? Right? I mean, we know it has a certain quality of forbearance, but it's also, it takes presence, it takes awareness, it takes exactly what we're practicing here, not being lost in our own attachments and aversions, likes and dislikes and those things, and taking a step away and just allowing a little space and a little time. Because when we bring that into our world and into our interactions with others, you can be more loving. And loving sometimes is just having the awareness to open the door for someone who's carrying packages, or helping somebody with somebody with a stroller who's going up the subway steps, and just your awareness is tuned to other people, not just I got to get to that appointment. I'm going to blow by this woman with the stroller because I got to get up the stairs quick. That awareness. It sounds very simple, right? But think about how many opportunities we have to be loving where we're not. And often we don't feel we should, right? So you go into the place to get your coffee, and that person's in a rotten mood. The person's nasty. So what do? Well, you're not going to let that person, abuse you or do something, you know, let them hurt you or things like that, because that's not being compassionate or loving either, because you're allowing that person to perpetuate their negative karma by being abusive or something like that. But um, sometimes it's just a matter of looking somebody in the eye and smiling, or just saying hello and just break, because you get into, especially in kind of transactional moments, you get into this pattern. Yeah, I'll take this, thank you, here's the money, and that, and just like having that presence or patience to um, acknowledge, you know. Sometimes it's about knowing someone's name or saying their name. If they wear a name tag, or you know their name, and you met them before, you see them every day. You have this exchange, but you don't say it. So, okay. I want to read something I found very beautiful. If you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, comments, comments are very helpful. How the practice is working with you, how the purifying breaths, how these techniques, what technique are you using? Which one are you leaning into of the three? It helps me to know these things. So you can, instead of just writing questions, you can write comments. This is from the Karmapa. In order to develop this latter type of love, basically we're talking about this kind of more, not this attachment love, going beyond our circle of loved ones, right? We must diminish our fixations. In the Vajrayana tradition, the metaphor used for relative bodhicitta, which is the actual bodhicitta, is the full moon. Our limited love, on the other hand, is characterized by a crescent moon, because we have only partially developed the potential of the love we possess. It is biased and limited, restricted to family and friends. Meditating on bodhicitta as a full moon serves as an inspiration for us to develop impartial love completely. So he's talking about an impartial love. That's kind of what we're talking about, if you will. I just thought that was very beautiful. Okay, let's see if anybody has any. I have a mood disorder that makes me wildly vulnerable to all the negativity you mentioned: anger, jealousy, attachment, greed, ignorance. My mantra has always been free love, baby, and as a super sensitive soul in this senseless, insensitive world, I've been struggling for the past handful of years to grow thick skin. Serenity prayer has been doing some heavy lifting lately. Serenity prayer is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. What do you do when the external forces that make you see make you see red? How do I stop from flying off the handle when I witness injustices that are out of my control? Um, I think we're all wildly vulnerable to all the negativity that I mentioned, like you say, anger, jealousy, attachment. We all are, not just people with mood disorders. All of us. That's why the Buddha came into the world to teach. That's why he taught for 50 years. He didn't just teach for one day and said, this is what I've learned, write it down, pass it around. 50 years. Um, what is it, 83,000 teachings? There are many different ways of approaching the teachings, and they're all basically towards the same result, right? Why did he have to teach? Why was it this monumental activity and effort? Because all of us are possessed by these things for eons and for lifetime after lifetime. So you are not alone. That's what drew me to this practice. That's what drew me to these teachings, because I was wildly vulnerable. I am wildly vulnerable. I was when I was searching for it, and still am wildly vulnerable to all the negativity that we're talking about: anger, jealousy, attachment, greed, ignorance. I mean, that's it's hardwired into our minds. right? But somehow we're all here today, meaning somehow we're not just accepting this as, this wild vulnerability to these negativity. We're not just accepting it as this is it and that's what it is. All of us here have decided, well, we want to do better, basically. Really, right? My mantra has always been free love, baby. Which, that can mean a lot of things. So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. And like you say, as a super sensitive soul in this senseless, insensitive world, it's not completely senseless or insensitive. There's tons of senselessness in the world, and there's tons of insensitivity in the world, but it's not complete that, right? We're struggling to grow a thick skin, and you do have to have a thick skin. And you ask, how do I stop from flying off the handle when I witness injustices that are out of my control? If it's out of your control, really out of your control, then you have to work with your emotions. You have to work with your thoughts and connections to those things. If anything we're studying here is of value to you, I suggest you really investigate these teachings, really look for a teacher, study the Dharma. Because the Dharma and meditation is exactly a method to working with the mind, working with flying off the handle when I witness injustices that are out of your control. That's one of the aspects of it, right? Witnessing injustices that maybe are not completely out of your control is a different story, because we're not talking about being these passive observers watching injustice 5 feet away from us, and allowing it and just meditating then and space or whatever, and as this goes on. That is not the case. If anything, having that sense of presence and calm and working with thought, if you see injustice and you feel there's something you can do, then you should by all means do it. Sometimes that might mean risking your life, I guess. I don't know. I mean, people protested for civil rights and were, beaten and killed and things like that. And sometimes if that's what, your path is and what inspires you, there's, you may, there's people who've jumped in front of trains to rescue strangers. What is that? Or see someone who's about, who's being threatened with a knife and step in front of somebody vulnerable, so a complete stranger. Where does that come from? I'm not telling you that's what you should do at all. Risk your life every time you see somebody in danger. I'm not saying that, but that's an extreme, level. You can become an activist. You can become an advocate. To help people who are vulnerable. There's all kinds of ways to deal with how you want to work with the world. People are sometimes very passionate about certain causes, dedicate their lives to them, to helping people who are suffering. But the main question you're asking is, how do you deal with these, this world of emotion? It's practice, Dharma practice, study of Buddhism. I mean, I'm not here to advocate to convert people to Buddhism. It's not my interest. I don't really find Buddhism to be a religion, to be quite honest with you. I really don't. I find it to be really a science of mind. I'm not believing that Buddha was a man. I don't worship him as a god. I don't believe that if I pray to Buddha, he's going to help me or something like that. I do believe that intentions, like for instance these prayers that were made at the Garchen Institute, to help with the fire, those kind of things I can't really explain. It's not certainly not Buddha. I don't think Buddha's not like an interventionist God or something like that, you know. But I do think the intentions of someone who's really comes from a true and altruistic place has, you know, abilities to go beyond the what we consider normal, if that makes sense. I'm getting off on big tangents today. Like I said, I'm not here to promote Buddhism per se. I'm here just basically saying, well, what has helped me. And like I said, I do not see it so much as a religion, as a way of just figuring out how to live, really. You know, even in its precepts, it's not so much don't do this and do this. Sure, of course, it's do no harm. Of course, it's cultivate, you know, virtuous, you know, cultivate virtue. But those things also have to be taken in certain context. You know what I mean? It doesn't say nobody should drink alcohol. It doesn't say no one should, everyone shouldn't have premarital sex. Things like there's a lot of it is about intention. You know, the morality, for instance. You know, like we talked about last about lying. You know, telling the truth is not always kind of compassionate. Sometimes kind of telling a little lie is more Buddhist than just the truth. Although, you know, lying is not. If it's lying to serve yourself or to be deception, just you know, duplicitous or deceptive in a negative way, of course that's not proper conduct. And they're not saying don't do this because Buddha said not to. It's basically saying don't do these things because the point is to not you know, to not create negative karma, because negative karma is an obstacle to enlightenment, as an obstacle to you, you know, kind of embodying this state of mind that we're talking about, that natural great peace, that natural calm, that kind of natural clarity, where you can be mostly a benefit to other beings. Eye contact is a must. It's one of my big things when engaging with someone. It transmits love, but also reassurance. I've always found it changes the whole persona of the other person, only positive ways. I'm always telling people I love them because I genuinely and universally do. Loving others is, after all, being able to love yourself and perpetuate the light. Every opportunity to show love, do so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can go around and just, you know, go to Starbucks and you buy a latte and tell them you love them, might not be, you know, you have to have skillful means. You know, you can't, you know, buy whatever, a Metro card in the subway and tell the guy selling it, you know, I love you. You know, we have to use skillful means. But a smile, you know, a moment of just acknowledging that person's existence, you know, letting someone else go in first because, you know, they have something in their hand, or they're older, or they're struggling or something like that. Um, and sometimes eye contact is, you know, when someone's unstable and someone's very aggressive or something like that, sometimes eye contact is not always the best thing, right? Skillful means is very important. And I'm not talking about skillful means as a manipulative technique. You know, you're applying skillful means always to for the benefit of others, not for you to get over. Super meditation session this morning. Can immediately apply what you shared about my daily interaction with all that I come into contact, beginning with my own mind. There are no enlightened people, only enlightened actions. There are no enlightened people, only enlightened actions. I don't know about that. I mean, there's the people aren't enlightened. It's the mind, right? It's the mind clear of obscurations that is really enlightened. So, what an excellent talk on love and patience. What I needed to hear today. I have had so much negativity in the past week. I've been using the purifying breaths almost every day in moments of anxiety. It is very grounding. I feel calmer after. If I am looking to start seriously exploring Buddhist Dharma, where should I start? There's so many terms and teachings that it can get overwhelming. Um, I mean, I'm very biased, so if I tell you where to start, it would be Garchen Rinpoche, but you don't have to do that. I post lots of teachers on my Instagram, which I'm assuming you get because that's probably how you found this class. The Dalai Lama is a good place to start. The Art of Happiness, if you're really new. Um, but you should, start looking up teachers, and go to their websites, get their email blasts, read some of their books. Lama Yeshe, who passed away quite a while ago, has many great books. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, we spoke about these people, but you can follow me. I post a lot of stories with Buddhist teachings. When you lose your patience, you lose your love. This is so good. Thank you. This is something I really need to work on. And a perfect sentence to keep in my mind and repeat throughout the day. Really appreciate this class. I've learned a lot by coming here. The 9 purifying breaths is so helpful, and I am incorporating this into my daily practice. I've been using mantra as part of my meditation. It keeps me calm and my mind focused. Thank you for that. Yeah. Seems, the purifying breaths really, I probably should have introduced it earlier to this class, but yeah, it definitely does. It's nice going right into the meditation on that last breath. I think it really sets the table. Harnessing that passion to help others towards the best and most effective end is the tricky part. Yeah, it's not just harnessing the passion, it's having the clarity of mind to knowing what's most effective. So the passion is not tainted by your own likes and dislikes and what you think the outcome should be. It's more responding in the moment to what is necessary. Is our meditating benefiting all sentient beings when we dedicate it? Yeah, that's why we dedicate. 100%. It's like they say a drop of water, right? When you put it into the ocean, becomes the ocean. It's not a separate drop of water anymore, although it was before it went into the ocean. It's very similar in a way, what we do. So when you meditate, if you get some benefit out of it, some calm, some moments of clarity, some moments of peace, that's great for you. But if you make the conscious effort of dedicating it to the benefit of all beings, that merit is put into that ocean of, limitless merit. And there's something kind of scientific to that as well, because, you know, emptiness, which is such a big component of Buddhism and non duality, emptiness being the real state of things, the real reality, the ultimate reality, right? So there's no difference between us as a singular and us as a universal. So that dedication is in direct resonance and direct relationship and contact with the universal. If if that, I mean, that's really how they look at it. Boundaries are a huge thing for me. I have a hard time creating healthy boundaries. Do you have any advice how to create them? Boundaries are good. Boundaries are really great and very important. Like I said, you can't just walk around going, "I love you, brother. Thanks for the coffee," or "I'd like to have a cheeseburger, medium rare. I love you." Waiter. You know what I mean? There's a boundary right there. Oh, but I could look that person in the eye and smile and say, "How are you?" and be grateful for them bringing me food. Where then an exchange that could be this very rapid transaction, unconscious on both parts, becomes, something. I've seen it in little ways. Somebody on the train gets up and allows, somebody who's having difficulty or older to sit down. And you see the people around them appreciate that act. You know, there's something in the resonance and vibration that goes on between the people where they, when people witness that kind of selfless act, that raises that vibration of all involved. So boundaries are important in family, codependence, where we settle into these relationships based on patterns of dysfunction for years and years and years, and it becomes a default mechanism. How we relate to family, especially in families or friends. That's not helping anybody. You know what I mean? It's not helping them because it's kind of crippled them because you're always doing everything for them, say, for example. And it's not helping you because you're resenting it and you're not really helping these people either. At some point you create a boundary. Well, I'm not going to, I'm going to wait till you get a job now. I'm not just going to let you, buy drugs and do, you're going to have an, people have an intervention sometimes when it gets that far. Boundaries are very important. We're not talking about becoming just, skillful means, like what I said. So the key is, and this is where study of Dharma and meditation, where this comes in, is creating no, creating boundaries that are of most benefit. So it's not just benefiting you, because then you can just create boundaries that where you don't have to get invested anymore. That's still about just cherishing yourself or something like that. So that's why, the study of Dharma and practice of meditation, allow us to make better decisions, really, and better actions, really, better engagement. How can we practice while avoid stressing out when we're moving? I'm a Venezuelan living in Madrid. I've been there 16. I'm going insane, but I try my best. I detach, but I detach for lots of things, but books and essentials. It's still too much. It's like a last exam. Well, listen, you can practice meditation, you can read a Dharma book, but you have to remember that everything changes, and this period will pass. And that sounds very reductive and very simplistic, but it's really true. I've told this story before, but I'll just tell it again. It's quick. I was going through this is before I was a Buddhist. Really difficult period of my life. I couldn't sleep. I thought I was going crazy. I thought my life was endangered. Maybe the thoughts built into the scenarios of just doom and gloom. A very, very difficult thing. Something happened, and I was in the thick of it. Something real happened, and it was very disturbing and very scary. And I reached out to someone who I was working with, not a Buddhist, but somebody, someone involved in the spiritual community, and she gave me the number of a Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoche Lama, who I called, and I explained what was going on. He said, I can't really do anything for you, but remember this, that everything changes. And he said, that might be very hard to hear and probably not that helpful, but really think about that. And some time went by, and then I stopped thinking about that problem. It kind of just went, when I think about it now, there is no problem. A lot of things happen that way. Some things don't, you know what I mean? We lose people in our lives. People pass away, and we miss them forever. I'm not saying that there's not tragedies that befall us that stick with us, but something like this, moving, 3 months from now, you're not going to be moving. You'll get through it. It's better if you can get through it without raging out or despairing too much, or drugging out, or so hang in there, Grace. First time here, what a treat. I teach meditation and yoga, but not strictly Buddhist. This was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for these sessions. They mean more than you can know. I find the 9 purification breaths beneficial. I'm starting to investigate some of the teachers. Thank you. I deal with difficult people and situations. This conversation made me realize I'm doing the right thing when dealing with these people. My consciousness allowing me to handle this in better ways for all. Cool. Today is the 49th day of a dear friend's passing. Is there a Buddhist tradition that I could do today to mark this significant day? You could just make an aspiration prayer that person finds a positive rebirth. Really make an aspiration prayer. We could do that together. I'll just lead it. Uh, Usually we make this prayer to Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. And again, remember that we're not praying as intervention, asking for intervention, because the ultimate nature of reality is emptiness. So the Buddha is our own mind. Padmasambhava is known as a Buddha as well. He brought Buddhism to Tibet, was an enlightened being. Um, so we'll just say, through your blessing, grace, and guidance, through the power of the light that streams from you, may all their negative karma, destructive emotions, obscurations, and blockages become purified and removed. May they know themselves forgiven for all the harm they may have thought and done. May they accomplish this practice of Paula, die good and peaceful death, and through the triumph of their death, may they be able to benefit all of the beings living or dead. And we just imagine your friend and Guru Rinpoche, or just imagine light kind of streaming into your friend, or imagine the Buddha or Padmasambhava if you know what he looks like, and just imagine light streaming from that person, from the Buddha, into your friend, and your friend dissolving into the Buddha. Okay, let's dedicate the merit of today's class to the benefit of all beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you for today. Thanks for coming, being here. We shall see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Nick Solidio, for your kindness and generosity. See you soon.